Hello everyone and welcome to another video of our IGCSE course. This time we're going to talk about quadratic equations. You probably noticed that I split this kind of a table in three columns. This is because we have three methods of solving quadratic equations. If you remember the normal equations, they're quite easy to solve. Let's say we have something like 2 plus x equals to 5. We can just subtract 2 from both sides. We would get x is equal to 3. This is quite obvious, yeah? When it comes to quadratic equations, we can't really do the same thing. We cannot just keep arranging, rearranging numbers. It's not going to work. Why? Because we have x squared and we have x. So that's the problem. How do we approach this? Well, again, we have three methods to do this. Let's go through all three methods in detail. Let's try to figure them out. Okay, so first method is a factorization method. On the previous lesson, I was talking about factorization. On this lesson, I'm going to talk a bit more in detail about it. And I will show you new ways to factorize as well. So how do we solve it by factorizing? So let's think about it. So x squared plus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. If you remember, this number here next to x is a sum of two numbers, and this number here, 6, is a product of two numbers. And what numbers are these? Well, we have to find out. Okay, so some number plus some other number is equal to 5, and then some number times this other number is equal to 6. What are these numbers? Well, those are actually 2 and 3. So 2 plus 3 equals to 5. 2 times 3 is equal to 6. Now that we found this, if we can actually factorize it, so it's 2 and 3, it means we can factorize it like this. So it becomes x plus 2 times x plus 3 is equal to 0. Okay, now we have to use one of the fundamental properties of arithmetic operations, is that the only way to get 0 from a product, so when we multiply two things and we get 0 as a result, the only way this happens is if one of these things or both of them are equal to 0. Okay, so one of these entities, so either x plus 2 or x plus 3, have to be equal to 0. Let's write it down. So either x plus 2 equals to 0 or x plus 3 is equal to 0. And now we have two equations which we can solve. So x plus 2 equals 0, in this case x equals to minus 2, or if x plus 3 equals to 0, x is equal to minus 3, which brings us to our answer. X equals to minus 2 or x equals to minus 3. As you can see, there's two possible solutions for this equation. So either x is equal to minus 2 or minus 3. When it comes to quadratic equations, what is actually a quadratic equation? Quadratic equation is the equation which has x or any other variable to power 2 in it. Okay, so if you have power 2 in an equation, no, not a power 3, so if you have a power 3, this becomes a cubic equation, which is the whole another thing. But if there's a power 2 in this equation, then we can call it quadratic. So when we solve quadratic equations, in many cases you will have two solutions. In some cases you will have one solution. In some cases you will have 0 solutions to quadratic equations. So that can be quite tricky, but please get used to the fact that two solutions for quadratic equation are completely okay. So like it happens a lot. Okay, so that's the first method by factorization. The second method is we can use the formula. Normally, you are only supposed to go to the second method, to the formula methods, after you tried factorization and you failed. So if you can factorize it, go for it. This method, the factorization method, is more kind of an error. It's kind of more error-proof. So like there's less ways to make an error. Just go for it first. So this should be a first try. And then if you fail, you go to the formula method. Okay, so let's do the formula method. So we have x squared, again, plus 5x plus 6 equals to 0. Okay, so to use the formula method, of course, we need to know the formula. Well, here is the formula. So x, here actually, these two solutions, we can call them x1 and x2. These two solutions, okay? And the formula method is like this. So x1 and 2 is equal to minus b plus minus. You notice that there's a plus minus. It means that we have to use both plus and minus when we do this stuff. Wow. Wow, they actually have a square root. That's pretty cool. Plus minus b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Okay, at this point, you probably have a lot of questions like, what is this b? What is this a? What is this c? I can totally understand your questions. So let's try. I will try to show you. So b, a, and c, and it's better to call them actually a, b, c, are coefficients of this quadratic equation. So ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. This is a kind of a unifying expression for a quadratic equation. This one here. All right, so ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. Okay, and now so what we have to do is we have to compare this unified expression to our normal equation, which looks like this. So x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals to 0. And now let's try to figure out what is a, what is b, and what is c. Okay, so first of all, a. So a is the number which is next to x squared. Do we have any number next to x squared? No, we don't. Does it mean that a is 0? No, a is not 0. Actually, a is equal to 1 in this case because we have 1x squared. We don't write it, but it's there. So a equals to 1. B is the number next to x, so b equals to 5. And finally, c is the number which doesn't have any x's next to it, so c is equal to 6 in this case. Okay, now that we found it, we can plug it in into the formula. Minus b, so that's minus 5, plus minus square root of b squared, so that's 5 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 6. All of this divided by 2a, so 2 times 1. So many of you will probably want to use calculator when you actually type this formula in, and it's 100% fine to use calculator. The only thing I would recommend is when you type this formula in the calculator, don't type the parts of it. So just take the whole formula and type the whole thing in the calculator if you decided to use calculator for it. So let's just type it. So plus minus, we don't really have plus minus in calculator, so what we have to do is we have to use plus first and then the minus after it. B squared, so 5 squared minus 4 times 1 times 6 divided by, I know I'm probably typing too much, but just so you guys know. Yeah, so just type the whole formula in the calculator, okay? So it's going to give you 2 if we have plus, sorry, minus 2 if we have plus. And if we change the plus to minus, we will get a minus 3. Remember, in most cases there is 2 answers. Okay, sometimes you will get something like this. Sometimes you will get the same answers. For example, you will get x1 equals 1, x2 equals 1. So this is possible, but in almost all cases there is either no answer or there's 2 answers. So because if you write one answer, that's a mistake. You will get some points deducted. So there has to be 2 answers. So minus 2 and minus 3. You see we get the same answers for this one. Okay, finally the last method is, I would say, so this one doesn't really go like if you failed the formula. No, this is not how it works. So last one is called completing the square. This is a bit of a peculiar method, I would say. Completing the square. So how do I even start explaining this method? So that's just another way to do this. Completing the square means that let's just write it down. So let me just try to explain it to you. When I'm writing x squared plus 5x plus 6. So this method comes from the formula of square. So when we have two things, a plus b squared like this, we can open the brackets and write it like this. So a squared, we can write it as s squared plus 2ab plus b squared. And if it's a minus b, if it's a minus b squared, we can write it like this: a squared minus 2ab and then plus b squared, like this. So to complete the square, what we have to do is, first of all, we can move 6 to the other side. So let's just move it there. So 6, let's just subtract 6 from both sides so that we only have this part left. X squared plus 5x equals to minus 6, like this. Okay, now what do we do now? Now we have to, basically what we have to do is we have to try and make this part look like this. So something like this, yeah? We could change it a little bit. We could say that this is equal to, so because normally we are supposed to have, in this formula we need to have a squared plus 2 times a times b plus b squared. In this case, we could say that x is our a. So we could say this is our a squared, right? This would work. Then we could say that this 5x is our 2ab. So this could be a 2 times 2.5 times x, right? We could say that. So what is actually missing? Well, this is our a squared, right? It's here. 2, it's ba kind of, 2 times b times a is present. What is missing? The b squared is missing, right? So b squared is not here. What do we do? Well, so here we use quite an interesting trick. We basically, plus 2.5 squared, okay? And then we also minus it, because we cannot just take it out of thin air. We cannot just say, okay, we have 2.5 squared here. Yeah, but we can do this. So for example, let me give you here. So let's say x plus 2 equals to 7. In this case, x equals to 5, right? If we start changing it, if we do this, equals to 7, this is not going to work anymore, right? We can do this. But if we really, really want to see this 3 there, what we can do is we can plus 3, and then we can subtract 3, so that in total it's equal to 0, so it doesn't change anything. So that's what we are doing here, because we really, really want to have this 2.5 squared there, just so that we could complete the square. Okay? But we cannot really change the balance. We can't really change the order of things. Like, everything has to be balanced when it comes to the equation. So we have to plus 2.5 squared here, and then we also have to subtract it. So we plus it, and then we kind of minus it, like this. Okay, I will probably, so 6, let's just, so I'll kind of, 6 is kind of there, is out of picture. We don't need it for now, so anyways. So here we have, okay, so here we have, this is our formula. Now b squared is finally present, okay? So now we can take this in one single expression. So we have a squared plus 2ab, right? A squared is here, plus 2ab, it's also here, and then plus b squared, right? So now that we have all three of these things, what we can do is we could say, well, why don't we change it into this formula? Yeah. So we could change it. So we have x, this is a is x, and b is 2.5. So we're going to have x plus 2.5, then square it. Remember, we have, don't forget about this part, we have minus 2.5 squared here, so don't forget about it. So minus 2.5 squared equals to minus 6, like this. Well, yeah, that was a bit hard. Okay, what can we do now? And now we can actually, minus 2.5 squared is going to be equal to minus 6.25. So x plus 2.5 squared minus 6.25. Notice that it doesn't become positive. Why? Because it's not minus 2.5 squared like this. It's like this, okay? It's minus 2.5. So here's for comparison. So we have minus 2.5 squared, it becomes 6.25. Okay, if you have minus like this and there's no brackets, 2.5 squared, it becomes minus 6.25, like this. So in this formula, like if you complete the square, every time it's going to be the minus. Like this thing is always going to be the minus. Equals to minus 6. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take it to this side. So we're going to have x plus 2.5 squared equals to 0.25. And now that we have only the square on this side, so what we can do is we can take a square root. Take a square root from, oh, sorry, not 0.2. Yeah, sorry, we take a square root from both sides. And we will get x plus 2.5 equals to, and in this case, okay, so this becomes a little bit tricky. So for example, square root of 4 normally is equal to 2, but actually also 2, yeah, it's also equal to minus 2. So in the same way, square root of 0.25 is equal to plus minus 0.5. Okay, and then x equals to plus minus 0.5 minus 2.5. So it's going to be equal to, so there's going to be two options, right? So 0.5 minus 2.5 equals to minus 2, and minus 0.5 minus 2.5 equals to minus 3. So again, we get the same answers. Whoops, not minus 1, sorry, x equals to minus 2, x equals to minus 3. Okay, this last method may seem like it's very, very complicated, but like when you get used to it, it becomes the fastest method actually to solve equations. In most cases, this is the fastest method, completing the square, but if you guys feel confused by it right now, it's okay. This method will be studied more in the A levels as well, so it's it will kind of transfer into the higher math classes. So for now, just pay attention to the first two methods, and I will try to show you some examples with completing the square as well. So factorization and formula. Okay, I have another example for you here. I don't know how long is this video. Okay, just I think one more example is fine. So 2x squared plus 5x plus 3. Let's try to solve this one with two methods, factorization and formula. So not completing square for this one. So here we're going to have factorization, and here we're going to have formula. Okay, so before actually we only factorized the expressions where there was 1x squared. So if there's some index, if there's some number next to x squared, it means we actually have to change the strategy a little bit. So we have 2x squared plus 5x plus 3 equals to 0. Okay, so to factorize this kind of an equation, what we have to do is we have to multiply these two numbers. So 2 times 3 equals to 6. This is our product of two numbers. This is product of two numbers. And this number is the sum of two numbers that we are looking for. So again, if there's not just one x squared, so in this example we have x squared plus 5x plus 6, we use this method. So this is the sum and this is the product, okay? So if we have something other than x squared, if we have 2x squared or 3x squared or any other constant next to x squared, what we have to do is we have to use this method, okay? So now sum is still the same. This is still the sum here, so 5 is the sum, okay? But the product is the product of these two numbers. So product equals to 6, 2 times 3. So in this case we have sum is 5, so it means that some two numbers m plus n equal to 5, and some two numbers m times n now are equal to 6. Okay, actually that's almost the same as the last, yeah, that's the same as last example. So we can see that those two numbers are 2 and 3. So 2 plus 3 equals to 5, 2 times 3 equals to 6. We can see that. Okay, so the other part is interesting. So since those two numbers are 2 and 3, what we have to do is we have to split the middle of this equation. So 5x, we will split it into 2x and 3x, like this. So 5x, we use these two numbers that we found, okay? And we split 5x, we split it into 2x and 3x. So again, it was 5x. Now, by using the two numbers we found, so m and n, 2 and 3, we split it into 2x because those numbers are 2 and 3, so we split it into 2x and 3x, like this. Okay, and now we can actually factorize. So next step is we have to factorize this side and this side. So here we're going to have 2x. So I factorize these two things, okay? So 2x times x plus 1. And here we're going to have plus. So they have 3 in common, both of them. So this is going to be 3 times x plus 1. This is equal to 0. Again, this looks quite complicated, but when you get used to this method, it's going to be a bit more simple, hopefully. And now, okay, now we can factorize them further because both of them have x plus 1. So we could take x plus 1 kind of to the front. And here we're going to have 2x plus 3. Okay, the factorization is done. Now we have what we have the same thing as last time. Remember, like I've told you, if we have a product of two things and this product gives us a 0, it means that one of these things or both of them have to be 0. So in this case, it means that either x plus 1 is 0 or 2x plus 3 is 0. So in this case, x equals to minus 1. In this case, if you do a little bit of manipulation here, you will get that x would be equal to minus 3 over 2. Or we could say it's minus 1.5 as well. Okay, so that's the answer. X equals minus 1. X equals minus 3 over 2. Okay, let's try the formula very quickly. So in this case, maybe actually in this case the formula would be better, but when you get used to factorization, in most of the cases factorizing is the faster method. This is why my advice. So first try to factorize it, okay? If you fail, use the formula. Why? Because a lot of mistakes are being made when people plug in the numbers in this formula. So equals to 0, right? We can kind of compare it to the formula. So formula looks like this. So ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0, right? So we can see that a equals to 2, b equals to 5, and c equals to 3 in this case, right? And then we can use the formula. minus b, so minus 5 plus minus b squared, so 5 squared minus 4 times a, which is 2 times c, which is 3. All of this divided by 2a, so that's 2 times 2. I will try to do this one without calculator, so 5 squared minus 4 times 2 times 3, so that's 8 times 3, so minus 24. That's just like 1, so we have minus 5 plus minus square root of 1, so that's just 1, and all of this is divided by 4. So minus 5 minus 1, so we have minus 5 minus 1 divided by 4, and we have minus 5 plus 1 divided by 4. We get minus 1, and here we get also minus 3 over 2. So the same answer. X equals to minus 1, x equals to minus 3 over 2. Okay, I think the video is running a little bit too long, so I will make one more video where I will solve past paper questions and word problems with quadratic equations. But for this one, I think that's it. So please take a look again, try factorization first when you do them. If you fail with factorization, do the formula, okay? Because sometimes some equations, they cannot be factorized. And if you use the formula, just be very careful about it. That's it for this lesson. See you on the next one, everyone.